Kadena Air Base, Okinawa, 0347 local time. A mission planning cell has been running for 6 hours. Captain Marcus Webb, 44th Fighter Squadron, is staring at a range calculation that doesn't work. The strike package: 4 F-15Cs, full weapons load, tasked against surface-to-air missile installations on the first island chain. The math is simple, the result isn't. The nearest tanker rendezvous point sits 340 nautical miles from the target area. That tanker is a KC-135, unescorted, in airspace that China's PLA-AF can reach with J-11B fighters out of Fujian province. Webb knows what everyone in the room knows. The tanker may not survive to the rendezvous point. He pulls a second planning sheet. Different numbers. An F-15EX Eagle II. Conformal fuel tanks installed. The range calculation changes. Completely. We'll come back to Webb and what he decided. But to understand why a single fuel tank configuration reshapes the entire Pacific strike equation, you need to know what the Air Force was building toward for the past 4 years. The F-15EX Eagle II entered operational service in 2021. The Air Force bought it for one documented reason. The F-35A, for all its fifth-generation capability, can't carry the payload the Pacific requires, and can't reach the targets without tanker support that may not exist in a contested environment. That's not editorial opinion. That's the written acquisition justification submitted to Congress in the FY2022 budget request. Here's what that means in concrete terms. The F-35A's internal weapons bay holds 4 AIM-120D AMRAAMs, or two 2,000-pound JDAM variants. That's the stealth configuration. Any external weapon kills the radar cross-section advantage and adds drag that cuts already limited range. The F-15EX has 11 hardpoints and a 22,000-pound payload capacity. It carries the same weapons the F-35 carries, and then it carries more. That matters because in a Taiwan contingency, a single strike sortie may need to suppress enemy air defenses, carry anti-radiation missiles, and still hold a self-defense package for the egress. The F-35A can't do that in one sortie. The F-15EX can. But payload without range is irrelevant. And range is the central problem of the Pacific. Here's the geometry that drives everything. Kadena Air Base sits roughly 400 nautical miles from the Taiwan Strait. A standard F-15C loadout with internal fuel gives about 1,200 nautical miles of combat radius under high-altitude cruise profiles. On paper, that's enough. In practice, the strike profile isn't a straight line. Tanker support is assumed, and the threat environment forces routing decisions that add distance. The numbers stop working before the aircraft reaches the target area. I went through the acquisition documentation and Boeing's test data on the CFT system. One specification kept coming up. The conformal fuel tanks on the F-15EX add roughly 900 nautical miles of unrefueled range. Not 200, not 400, 900. And they do it without touching a single weapons pylon. That distinction matters. On legacy platforms, extended range meant external fuel tanks on hardpoints. Hardpoints that then couldn't carry weapons. The pilot chose range or payload, not both. The F-15EX's CFT system attaches to the fuselage spine, integrated into the airframe structure. The pylons stay free. A CFT-equipped F-15EX can carry a full suppression of enemy air defenses loadout. AGM-88 HARMs, AIM-120D AMRAAMs for self-protection, AIM-9X Sidewinders, at the same time as the extended fuel load. What that means in combat: the aircraft reaches the target. It carries the weapons needed to clear the path and execute the strike. And it doesn't need a tanker rendezvous over airspace the adversary is actively contesting. Boeing's aerodynamic test data, referenced in the F-15EX program documentation submitted to Air Combat Command, shows a drag penalty from the CFT installation of about 3 to 4% at cruise altitude. That's the cost. 3 to 4% drag for 900 nautical miles of additional range. The Air Force concluded that was an acceptable trade. The combat math supports that conclusion. There's a piece of this story that rarely comes up in public debate about fourth-generation versus fifth-generation fighters. The F-35 community is right that stealth provides real tactical advantages when penetrating defended airspace. That argument is documented. What gets less attention is that stealth doesn't help an aircraft that can't reach the target and can't carry enough weapons to finish the mission when it arrives. Here's the uncomfortable position, and we'll say it directly. The argument that the F-35A makes the F-15EX obsolete rests on assumptions about tanker availability that don't hold in a high-end Pacific conflict. The RAND Corporation's 2024 Pacific War Game analysis, cited in congressional testimony in March 2025, found that tanker survivability in the first 72 hours of a Taiwan contingency is the single most significant variable affecting U.S. strike effectiveness. Not stealth, not electronic warfare. Tankers. If the tankers can't survive, the F-35A's range limitation becomes a mission kill before the aircraft clears Okinawa airspace. The F-15EX with CFTs changes that equation. It doesn't eliminate the tanker dependency. It reduces it to the point where selective strike packages can execute without tanker support at all. That's the acquisition logic the Air Force built the F-15EX program around. It's not nostalgia for fourth-generation airframes. It's geometry. The 44th Fighter Squadron's reactivation at Kadena, formalized in the Air Combat Command announcement of November 2025, put F-15EX aircraft in the one location where CFT range extension has the most strategic value. Kadena is 400 nautical miles from the Taiwan Strait. The CFT-equipped F-15EX extends combat radius to profiles that reach targets in the strait and return without tanker support. The F-35A, stationed at Misawa, roughly 900 nautical miles further north, needs a tanker rendezvous just to reach the operational area. What most people assume about this program is that buying a fourth-generation fighter in 2024 was a failure of acquisition planning. The evidence tells a different story. The F-15EX's 22,000-pound payload capacity lets a single aircraft carry a weapons combination that would take two F-35A sorties to replicate. And both those F-35A sorties require tanker support. The cost calculus, the tanker dependency calculus, and the payload calculus all point the same direction. Boeing's FY2026 production contract, awarded in February 2026, covers 12 additional F-15EX airframes for a total program buy of 144 aircraft. The contract includes CFT kits for the full production run. That's not a supplemental capability. The Air Force is treating CFTs as standard equipment for the Pacific-based fleet. Put yourself in the position of a Pacific Air Forces planner in January 2026. You're building a strike package for a first island chain contingency. You have F-35As available. You have F-15EXs available. The F-35A gives you stealth penetration capability but requires tanker support and limits your weapons load to maintain that stealth advantage. The F-15EX gives you 22,000 pounds of weapons, 900 additional nautical miles of range with CFTs, and zero tanker dependency on certain profiles. But you're not invisible to adversary radar. The honest answer is that you use both. The F-35A penetrates the threat envelope and suppresses the integrated air defense system. The F-15EX, operating from standoff range with extended fuel, carries the heavy payload, the GBU-28 bunker penetrators, additional anti-radiation missiles, long-range strike weapons, and reaches the target because the F-35 cleared the path. What's striking about this program is that public debate framed it as a binary choice between stealth and legacy capability. The Air Force was buying a weapons truck that could reach the target without needing an asset that might not survive to support it. That's a different problem than the debate acknowledged. The CFT system is worth understanding mechanically. The tanks are aluminum lithium structures that conform to the upper fuselage spine between the cockpit and the vertical stabilizers. Each tank holds roughly 750 gallons of JP-8 fuel. The attachment system uses existing structural hardpoints on the fuselage. No airframe modification required for installation or removal. Ground crews can install or remove the CFT system in about 4 hours. That means the aircraft can be configured mission by mission based on strike profile requirements. That matters because not every mission needs CFT range. A combat air patrol mission over Taiwan Strait approaches uses a different fuel profile than a deep strike against hardened targets on the mainland coast. The CFT system's removability means the F-15EX isn't locked into one mission profile. Payload flexibility and configuration flexibility exist in the same airframe. Will a contested Pacific environment in 2027 or 2028 look different from what the 2024 acquisition planners projected? Comment yes or no, because that question determines whether the 144 aircraft buy was the right number or whether it needs to be revisited. The J-11B and J-16 fighters operating out of Fujian province have a combat radius that overlaps the Taiwan Strait tanker rendezvous corridors. China has invested specifically in the capability to deny those corridors. The F-15EX CFT program is, in part, a direct response to that investment. Range that doesn't depend on a vulnerable rendezvous point is range that can't be denied by threatening the asset enabling it. That's the Pacific Strike calculus. Every nautical mile of unrefueled range is a nautical mile of reduced exposure. 900 miles is a strategic shift, not an incremental improvement. Webb's second planning sheet. The CFT-equipped F-15EX profile. The range numbers work. The tanker rendezvous comes later in the mission, after the aircraft has already completed the primary strike task, not before. The tanker vulnerability problem doesn't disappear. It moves to a phase of the mission where the aircraft has already delivered its weapons. He files the CFT profile. The mission planning cell closes at 05:11 local time. The F-15EX Eagle II isn't the last word in Pacific air power. No single platform is. The question the Air Force is answering with the 44th Fighter Squadron at Kadena is narrower than that. In the first 72 hours of a high-end contingency, when the tanker fleet is under pressure, which aircraft can still reach the target? The CFT data provides one answer. Whether that answer is sufficient depends on a scenario that hasn't been tested outside a simulation. Subscribe. Next week, we're breaking down the USAF's tanker survivability assessment and what it says about the KC-46A's role in the first island chain fight.